I'm here to talk about basically culture. I'm an example of somebody that crossed cultures. I'm actually from London originally and spent half of my life in London running a recruitment company. So I love statistics because I'm British and I like to start with statistics. I've interviewed more than 10,000 people in my recruitment career. Hey, what do you think about that? And so I thought, my goodness, that's a lot of hours going through CVs, that's a lot of hours, and it got me thinking, wow, if you do that and you're not just focusing on somebody's education or on their skills, but you're also thinking about where do they come from in the world, we introduce a whole new dynamic to the scenario. And we have to really think about this in a bit more depth. I mean, this is how life is these days, right? We're chasing, the recruiter's chasing after the candidate, we're running around trying to find them, where are they? Deloitte, the CEO Priority Survey is very clear, attracting, recruiting talent, retaining talent, it's one of the big things right now. And for HR people or anybody who's recruiting, we have talent shortages, we have the diversity, we want to hire in innovative, diverse teams. We have to think about our company branding and our reputation, and Cass is going to talk a lot about company branding and reputation. We want to employ the best, retain the best employees, and we also have this dynamic of virtual teams, which I've been part of for the last 2.5 years, so I'm just so excited to be here in person. But there are all these diverse talents, and where do we find them? How do we find them? There's a great trend, there's a growing trend, and I'm sure that we'll come to that with Paige telling us about this, but people instead, they want their funnel of candidates to be big, right? We want to go for as diverse talent as possible. We're reducing how much we ask for education. This is a massive trend. We're reducing that. So the need for a degree is reducing all the time. And we're going instead for culture fit. And we talk about culture fit, is it fitting our company culture? But what we need to really understand is that culture starts so much earlier. By the time we're 7 years old, most of our values and most of where we are, who we are, is set. So it's only logical that when you come to recruit across cultures, you have to dig very deep and understand what makes up a person, their values, their behaviours. So culture is something that we carry with us. I like to think of culture a little bit as rules of the game. You know, if you are from, say, a Swedish company, BBi is a Swedish company, you know that people work really by consensus. You know, when they make decisions, it's all consensus. You know, in more hierarchical cultures, that decision-making is taken very differently and thought about very differently. And you wouldn't expect to make a decision at a certain level, you pass it up the chain, right? All of these things influence our work. When we have frustrations at work, and I hear this all the time in our trainings, oh, I don't know, this person isn't really engaging with me, this person doesn't speak up, this person never looks me in the eye. Sorry, but this can be down to cultural influences, and we need to work on understanding our own culture and understanding the culture of others to do our best job recruiting and retaining talent across borders, okay? So we need intercultural competence. And why do we need this? Because if you have interactions of any level, so it can be a recruiting campaign, it can be an employee onboarding, and we don't have people that have good, high CQ, it leads to what we hate most, judgments, misunderstandings, problems. And if we have high CQ, we gain trust, and most importantly, we gain innovation, ideas, new perspectives, and that is what most companies today are looking for. So let's remember, this is also very unconscious. You know, we have these cultural drivers, we have these behaviours. I'll give you an example of a training that I did a few weeks ago. It was with a multicultural international company in Barcelona, growing tremendously, needed to take on a lot of software people from all around the world. And when they came into the training, they said to me, yeah, we're really international. We're so international. We're an international company. And by the end of the training, they said, oh, we're such a Spanish company. We're not international at all. And the reason was we delved deeper into culture. So you have to dig deep. We understand that only 10% of what we see, like only 10% is the surface culture when we look at someone, when we talk to them about the food they like, the fashion they like, what they read, the language. This is only the 10%. 90% of what we are is deep culture. And I think if we think about that when we're recruiting our talent, and when we think about that if we're onboarding our talent, we can dive a lot deeper. We can make people feel part of our teams. So, from things like facial expressions, from things like gestures, body language, our concepts of time, our attitudes towards family, our attitudes towards tasks versus building relations. All of these things are set by culture. So to understand culture, what we do at BBi is we have a lot of measurement tools. So we have cultural profilers that, you can take advantage of. So when you're in your recruitment campaigns, you can think about the person that's recruiting, what is their cultural profile. You can think about the person you're interviewing, where are they from? And you can think, well, where are the gaps? Where are the possible gaps that may lead to miscommunication, misunderstanding, prejudgments? I mean, don't get me wrong, this is like, there's no right or wrong. We are who we are. It's just trying to move towards understanding of the other person. We see everybody through our own lens, right? So, we need to filter, but sometimes this can lead to prejudging the behaviours of other people if it doesn't conform with what we think is our values, right? So in interviews, we hear this a lot. She's very boastful, she's talking about all her achievements. This is too much for us. She does not give me frank answers. She says something, she doesn't really answer my questions in a direct way that I would expect. Well, I expect direct communication because I'm on the scale of direct communication. But Spain, for example, is on the scale of indirect communication because a lot of it is read between the lines. If you understand the rules of the game, you understand what people are saying. Okay, so we already have some differences. He does not look into my eyes. Eye contact is very, very important in certain countries, but in others, it's disrespectful. So when we're hiring people from all around the world, we need to kind of have this in our minds about how people are behaving. He does not seem very engaged. Maybe he's not from a culture that is speak up or, boastful. He does not seem humble enough for our corporate values. Brilliant example. IKEA went to France and they had a massive problem. IKEA, Swedish company, very aligned with the values of their founder. And they were opening up in France. And for the interviews, they wanted to send out the job descriptions and the publicity. And they couldn't find a French word for humbleness. So there you go. So IKEA, massive problem because in the culture, it's not there. So we need to think about it. Tell me, if you have the word. Humilité. Okay. This was IKEA in 1980. So since then, maybe it's entered the French language. Thank you very much. Humilité. Okay. Fantastic. So here we are, vast world of different people. How do we navigate? As I said, we use cultural profiling. And one of the grandfathers of cultural profiling is Geert Hofstede, who did lots and lots of studies into IBM. At the time, we're in 50 different countries. And he looked at dimensions and scales for how you could understand people's different behaviours in those countries. We don't have time to go into those today because I really want to talk to these guys here. But I'm going to just tell you about masculinity versus femininity. And it's not really what we think of masculine versus feminine. It's the attributes and how it varies between different cultures. So, for example, if somebody's from a masculine culture, they will think competition is inspiring. So think about when you're recruiting somebody and they're all about, yeah, you know, I won this prize, I've done this, I've done, and you're thinking, you know, maybe we are in a Swedish company and we want, you know, equality and this kind of thing. Some can focus on achievement, success, others can focus on work-life balance. This is really interesting because now we're trying to determine, you know, inclusive workplace cultures. Let's think about that. What does that mean? What does that mean for our company culture? I think I was talking to Cass the other day about an example of, you know, you join a tech company and you get the onboarding and the guy says, yeah, it's really great. We have drinks every Friday at 7. And the woman's heart sinks because she's got 2 young kids at home and she thinks, I don't want to do that. So it's how can you address these differences and how can you make the best of these cultural challenges? I mean, I think this learning from mistakes and mistakes are failures, this has changed a lot in Spain, because when I first arrived here, it was like if you made a mistake, it was terrible. I think that's true, right? But now we've had all these sort of entrepreneurs come from all over the world telling us, no, you've got to fail 27 times, you know, for it to be a success. So slowly, we're getting these messages. Some people focus on teamwork. That's more important to them. They want to be part of community. They want to be part of something. They want to establish relationships with their colleagues. Other people, not bothered. We'll see this in another slide. Some are focused on profit and growth, others on compromise and consensus. The great thing is that we can accommodate all of these different traits, but we just need to know what we're dealing with. So cultural profiling is an excellent tool if you are dealing with people from other cultures in your recruitment and your onboarding. So another area that's really important is, you know, thinking about how do we establish trust? I mean, in the workplace, trust is a very valuable commodity. And again, when we're interviewing or we're recruiting, we maybe want to understand how trust is built, because some cultures are very people-oriented, some cultures are task-oriented, and you can see that there's a tremendous difference. So when you go to interview somebody from maybe, you know, Japan, Brazil, China, Korea, having some kind of personal relationship is important to these people. So in interviews, they tend to be very formal affairs. Maybe we don't take the time to engage with people. We're so, you know, focused on getting through our questions, and, you know, maybe we haven't got any of those sort of icebreakers and personal rapport building techniques that we maybe could do. This could be a good idea. If you're dealing with people from the USA, Finland, Canada, Sweden, it's like, let's get down to business. You know, let's talk about me. And so understanding these things can really help us cross cultures and really think about identifying the gaps and bringing us together, right? My own experience here, when I'm going to talk about the Ayuntamiento again, but 10 years ago, I was on an international commission for the metropolitan strategy for Barcelona for 2020. So that's just gone. And I had to lead a commission of 14 different nationalities. And I can tell you that was a real shock for me, because I'd never dealt with so many nationalities at one time. I thought, this is going to be great. But when I actually tried to get people to do things, I realised the tremendous difference, and I had to kind of like start adapting my style. And I have done ever since. And I do my own cultural profile. And in some areas, I have become more Spanish. In other areas, I'm still very British. But it's interesting that you can change over time and you can adapt over time. So these things are really critical and really interesting. when you're thinking about your teams that you're putting, if you're recruiting or you have a team that's recruiting, think about their spidey senses, think about how culturally competent they may be. Maybe measure their profiles, see how they are, where they are on different scales. Think about who they're interviewing and how we can get the best out of recruiting our diverse talent. So I would say, understand culture, right? First of all, understand who we are, who the other person is, and think about that. Put it in the context of your company, because companies have their own distinct culture. We're sort of referencing personal culture, company culture, national culture, and they're all colliding in this recruitment and onboarding process, right? I'm British, so I'm going to say this. What gets measured gets done, right? So at the beginning of the process, if we have all our questions, we think about culturally competent questions, we think about who's doing the interviewing, and also, we field diverse people to interview diverse people. Because if you don't, you end up recruiting all the same, and that doesn't help anyone. So diversity in your hiring processes, and also a people-oriented onboarding. I think onboarding is very much looked at as an administrative task. We've got to get the contract signed, we've got to get these pieces of paper in order. But actually introducing people to the people element of your company and the diversity of cultures in your company is going to give you the best rewards and the best relationships. So the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. I mean, how many times, just to sum up, have we been in situations where an interview doesn't go as we thought? We thought, that was a really bad interview. The candidate didn't talk to me. I didn't get the information I needed. It's because our intercultural communication hasn't worked.